The big meeting room on Zentari Prime was full of noise, as always, but something felt wrong today. Kyle Harrison's chair was empty again, and this was the third time in a row. The human group that always came to these meetings had just disappeared, and nobody knew why. Speaker Vexthar stood up, and his crystal voice cut through all the talking. He was from the Alterian people, and had been running these meetings for many years. His long arms moved as he spoke and asked if anyone had heard from the humans lately. The room got quiet fast. 47 different alien races sat in the big circle, but the humans were not there. Their seats looked strange and empty. These meetings had been going on for almost 60 years, and the humans had never missed this, many times before. The Zephyrian woman with shiny scales spoke first. Her name was Trade Minister Kayla, and she looked worried. She said that all the trade routes through human space had gone dark. No one answered when they tried to call, and there were no customs officers anywhere. The shipping lanes that connected dozens of worlds had become ghost roads. Admiral Jake Morrison had been the human military man for 8 years. He was tough and smart, and the alien generals liked working with him. Commander Thexnall from the Krolix people kept looking at Jake's empty chair. His bug-like face showed he was upset. The Krolix had been fighting the Void Hunters for months, and they needed human help with battle plans. 3 weeks ago, all the human patrol ships had just turned around and gone home. They sent one short message that said their ships were going back to Earth space, and nobody should follow them. That was it. No explanation, and no goodbye. Dr. Lisa Carter had been working with the Crystal people on the Great Archive project for 5 years. She was the smartest human scientist anyone knew. Her partner, Professor Zenthara, stared at empty computer screens where human research used to flow like a river. Lisa had taken all the human data and cut all connections to the big galactic network. Years of work had vanished in one day. The money problems started right away. Human trade routes had become the backbone of galactic business. Space stations that humans and aliens ran together were suddenly empty of human workers. The aliens left behind did not know how to run the complex machines and systems. Captain Sam Rogers had been in charge of the biggest human trading post near the Vega system. He and his whole crew had packed up and left in just 2 days. They took nothing that belonged to other races, but they took all their own equipment and ships. The trading post now sat empty and dark. Elena Rodriguez had been helping refugees from war zones for 10 years. She was kind and worked hard to save lives. When she left her office, she put a note on her desk that said she was sorry, but all humans had to go home now. She said they were not angry at anyone. The Peaceful Collective sent scouts to check on human colonies throughout the galaxy. What they found was shocking. Humans were packing up entire cities and moving toward Earth. Giant transport ships bigger than anything seen before were carrying millions of people home. The operation was smooth and organized like a military mission, but nobody looked scared or forced. Brett Hayes had been training alien pilots for the Joint Defense Force. He was patient and good at teaching others how to fly in battle. Before he left, he gave all his training books to his alien students. He shook hands with everyone and said they were good pilots who would do fine without him. Dr. Ventara from the Medical Institute watched as human doctors and nurses left the hospital. Ships. These humans had saved thousands of alien lives over the years. They trained alien medics and shared their medicine knowledge freely. Now the medical ships felt empty and cold without their human crews. The strangest part was how calm and polite the humans were about leaving. They did not seem angry or scared. They finished their work projects and said goodbye to their alien friends. They paid all their debts and honored all their contracts. Then they just left. Nina Foster had been the human representative for deep space exploration. She worked with alien scientists to map new star systems and find new worlds. Before she left, she gave all the exploration data to her alien partners. She said the galaxy was beautiful and she hoped they would take good care of it. Some aliens tried to ask their human friends why they were leaving. The humans always gave the same answer. They said it was time to go home and they could not explain. More than that. They seemed sad but determined, like they had made a hard choice for good reasons. As the meeting went on, more reports came in. Every human outpost and colony was being evacuated. Every human ship was heading toward Earth. The humans had quietly and efficiently removed themselves from galactic civilization in just a few weeks. They left behind empty spaces that no one knew how to fill. 3 months had passed since the humans left, and everything was falling apart. The galactic economy was shaking like a building in an earthquake. Trade routes that depended on human protection were now full of pirates. The smart systems that humans had built to move goods across space had simply stopped working. Speaker Vexthar called an emergency meeting, and his crystal skin looked darker than usual. The big meeting room felt different now, with only 47 races instead of 48. The human chairs sat empty like missing teeth in a smile. Everyone kept looking at those empty seats. General Mordak stood up, and his heavy armor made loud sounds. He was from the hegemony military, and he did not like problems he could not solve with weapons. He said they needed to investigate what happened to the humans. The humans controlled important positions throughout the galaxy, and their silence was making everything unstable. Ambassador Chendari was from the Peaceful Collective, and her green skin was pale with worry. She shared intelligence reports that made everyone nervous. Deep space sensors were picking up massive construction in the Sol system where Earth was located. The energy readings were unlike anything in their databases. The humans were building something enormous. The Zephyrian delegate made a soft hissing sound that meant fear in her language. She said their merchant ships had found that all approaches to human space were now blocked by defense platforms. These platforms sent a simple message to any ship that came close. The message said that this space was closed and ships should turn back immediately. Ships that ignored the warning just disappeared. Dr. Kalamesh was the Council's best expert on alien life forms. She had studied every race in the galaxy for 30 years. She presented her findings with a shaky voice. She had looked at every interaction with humans over the past 50 years. Their departure did not match with any normal reason. There was no diplomatic crisis or economic fight or military threat. The humans had simply decided to leave. The problems were getting worse every day. Humans had become part of galactic civilization so completely that their absence created failures everywhere. Medical facilities lost access to human medicines that had saved millions of lives. Engineering projects stopped working without human technical knowledge. Even art and music suffered, because human creativity had enriched countless worlds. Captain Steve Morrison had been running the Human Defense Coordination Center. Before he left, he tried to train alien officers to take over his job. But the systems were too complex, and the aliens could not keep up with all the information. Pirates and raiders were taking advantage of the confusion to attack more targets. Alex Warren had been the director of human research facilities throughout the galaxy. He was brilliant and had helped solve problems that stumped alien scientists for centuries. His laboratories were now closed and locked. The research that could have led to amazing discoveries was sitting unused behind sealed doors. The Krolix military was struggling the most. They had been fighting the Void Hunters for months and losing badly without human tactical advice. Commander Thexnel reported that his forces were being pushed back on 3 fronts. Human battle strategies had made wars shorter and less deadly. Without human help, the conflicts were becoming bloodier and lasting longer. The Banking Guild of Kentaurus was seeing massive withdrawals as member species tried to save their money. Financial analyst Morgeth released a report that scared everyone. He said human economic activity had represented 37% of total galactic wealth. Their withdrawal was creating a downward spiral that threatened to destroy all major economies. The Outer Rim territories were in chaos. These frontier areas had been kept peaceful by joint human and alien patrols. Now, pirate fleets were attacking colonies and trading posts without fear. The local alien forces were not strong enough to maintain order without human support. Dr. Lisa Carter had left behind her research notes, but they were written in ways that only humans seemed to understand. Alien scientists tried to continue her work, but made little progress. The Great Archive still worked, but received no new human contributions. The flow of human knowledge that had driven progress for decades had simply stopped. Elena Rodriguez had been coordinating refugee assistance across 12 sectors. Her replacement was a kind alien who tried hard, but could not match her efficiency. Refugee camps were overcrowded, and supplies were running low. The smooth system that Elena had built was breaking down without her guidance. The most troubling reports came from deep space monitoring stations. Human colonies throughout the galaxy were being abandoned in an organized way. Massive transport fleets were moving millions of people toward Earth. The operation looked military, but there were no signs of panic or force. The humans seemed to be following a careful plan. Intelligence officers found evidence that humans had been preparing for this departure for months or maybe years. Hidden supply depots had been established along routes to Earth. Communication networks had been quietly redirected. The withdrawal was not sudden panic, but a long-term strategy. Some alien leaders suggested sending military forces to investigate human space. General Mordak wanted to break through the blockade and demand answers, but others worried that such action might be seen as an attack. The humans had left peacefully, and forcing contact might turn them into enemies. Trade Minister Kayla reported that the economic damage was spreading faster than anyone expected. Entire sectors that depended on human logistics were shutting down. Unemployment was rising as alien workers lost jobs that had been connected to human businesses. The galactic economy was like a body losing vital organs. As the meeting continued, more bad news arrived. The defense platforms around human space were getting stronger. New weapon systems were being activated. The humans were not just hiding, but actively fortifying their territory. Whatever they were preparing for, it required serious military protection. Ambassador Kethral volunteered to lead a peace mission to human space, and her courage impressed everyone in the council. She was from the diplomatic corps and had solved conflicts between dozens of species over her long career. Her ship was called Harmony's Voice, and she took representatives from 12 different races with her. The journey to Sol system took 2 weeks, and everyone felt nervous as they got closer to human territory. The automated defense platforms appeared on their sensors long before they could see Earth. These platforms were bigger than battleships, and there were hundreds of them arranged in perfect formations around the outer system. Captain Sam Rogers' voice came through the communication system, but it was clearly a recording. His words were calm, but absolutely firm. He said unknown vessels were entering restricted space, and this was their only warning. They should leave immediately or face defensive action. The message repeated every few minutes without change. Kethral transmitted diplomatic codes that should have opened communication with any civilized species. She sent peace offerings and formal requests for a meeting. She explained that the galactic community was worried about human welfare and just wanted to talk. The response never changed. The same recorded warning played over and over. When her ship moved closer to the inner system, bright lights flashed from the defense platforms. Warning shots from weapons of unknown design forced Harmony's Voice to retreat quickly. The energy beams were precise and controlled, but showed power that could destroy her ship easily. The message was clear even without words. The Altarian science vessel Transcendence tried a different approach. Dr. Nix Tar was their best communication expert, and he used quantum arrays to bypass the blockade. These systems could send messages through dimensions that normal defenses could not block. For a few seconds, he managed to connect with what seemed to be a human communication network. The brief contact was exciting but frustrating. Dr. Nixtar heard human voices and detected massive data flows between Earth and other locations in the system. But the connection was cut almost immediately. The only message that got through was from someone called Director Alex Warren. He said they appreciated the concern and were fine, but asked others to respect their decision and not try to contact them again. Deep space reconnaissance ships tried to gather information from safe distances. What they discovered was disturbing and amazing at the same time. Human colonies throughout the galaxy were being evacuated in the most organized operation anyone had ever seen. Transport fleets larger than anything humans had built before were moving millions of people toward Earth. The evacuation looked like a military operation, but there were no signs of distress or panic. Families were moving together and taking personal belongings. Children were playing on the transport ships. The humans acted like they were going on a planned vacation rather than fleeing from danger. Elena Rodriguez had left behind a message in her office that confused everyone who read it. She said to tell the other races that humans were not angry and not afraid. They were just going home. The message was written in her neat handwriting and seemed sincere, but explained nothing about why they had to leave. Intelligence teams found similar messages from humans all over the galaxy. They all said basically the same thing. The humans were not running from anything and not mad at anyone. They had simply decided it was time to go home. When pressed for more details, human friends would just smile sadly and say they could not explain. The Krolix surveillance networks detected something that made military leaders very worried. Human military assets throughout the galaxy were being moved and consolidated, but not destroyed. Weapon systems and defense installations were being packed up carefully and shipped toward Earth. The humans were not abandoning their military power, but concentrating it in one place. Brett Hayes had commanded a joint human and alien defense, stationed near the Rigel system. Before leaving, he had transferred all alien personnel to other posts and made sure they had enough supplies. But he had taken all the advanced human weapons and technology with him. The station still worked, but was much less effective without human equipment. Massive defense installations were being built around every former human colony. These fortifications used technology that alien scientists could not understand. Energy. Shields surrounded entire planets where humans used to live. Even the most advanced alien scanning equipment could not penetrate these barriers. Dr. Ventara led a medical mission to try reaching human hospital ships that were heading toward Earth. Her team offered to help with any medical emergencies during the journey. The human doctors responded politely but firmly. They said they had everything under control and did not need assistance. They thanked her for the offer but asked her to keep her distance. The strangest discovery came from monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Human communication networks were still active, but they were encrypted with codes that no alien computer could break. Massive amounts of data were flowing between human ships and installations. Whatever the humans were planning required enormous coordination and information sharing. Some alien species tried using their human friends as intermediaries. Aliens who had worked closely with humans for years tried to convince them to explain what was happening. But even close friendships could not overcome whatever orders or agreements the humans were following. They would only say it was necessary, and they were sorry for any problems caused. Nina Foster had been leading exploration missions with alien partners for 8 years. Her alien teammates considered her a close friend and trusted her completely. When they asked her directly what was happening, she looked sad but determined. She said there were things they could not understand yet, and the humans had to do this alone. The final attempt at contact came from the Peaceful Collective. They sent an unmanned probe carrying art and music from every species in the galaxy. It was meant as a gift to show that the galactic community missed their human friends. The probe was allowed to approach closer than any manned ship, but was eventually turned away by gentle but firm force. As weeks passed, it became clear that the humans had made their decision and would not change their minds. Every diplomatic approach failed in the same way. The humans were polite but absolutely firm about their isolation. They showed no hostility, but also no willingness to explain or compromise. Whatever they were doing required complete separation from the rest of galactic civilization. 6 months after humanity left, the galactic economy was dying. The Zephyrian Trade Consortium had to close down because their shipping routes were too dangerous without human protection. Pirates attacked their cargo ships every week, and insurance companies would not cover the losses anymore. The Banking Guild of Kentaurus watched helplessly as member species pulled out their money to prepare for hard times ahead. Financial analyst Morgeth released a report that terrified government leaders across the galaxy. Human economic participation had represented 37% of total galactic wealth. Their sudden withdrawal created a downward spiral that threatened every major economy. Stock markets crashed as investors realized how dependent they had become on human business. The crisis was much deeper than simple numbers. Human innovation had driven technological progress across the galaxy for decades. Without access to human research institutions, advancement in medicine and engineering slowed to almost nothing. Scientists who had worked with humans for years found themselves unable to continue projects that had seemed so promising just months before. Dr. Ventara was the director of the Galactic Medical Institute, and she faced shortages that kept her awake at night. 40% of their medicine database consisted of human discoveries and innovations. Without ongoing research partnerships, they were losing ground against diseases they thought they had beaten. Alien patients were dying from illnesses that human medicine could have cured easily. The Human Research Facility on Kepler Station had been developing treatments for neural parasites that affected dozens of species. Dr. Lisa Carter and her team had been close to a breakthrough that would save millions of lives. Now the laboratory sat empty and locked while the parasites continued to spread through the outer colonies. Military problems were equally severe. Human battle strategies had changed warfare throughout the galaxy, making conflicts shorter and less destructive. Without human advisors, several border disputes turned into full-scale wars. The Krolix were being pushed back by Void Hunter attacks, and their casualty rates were 3 times higher than when humans helped plan their defense. Commander Thexnal reported that his forces had lost 5 major battles in a row. Human tactical doctrine emphasized speed and precision to end fights quickly. Without that knowledge, the Krolix were fighting long, bloody campaigns that exhausted both sides. The war that should have ended in weeks was now entering its 6th month. The Outer Rim territories fell into chaos as pirate fleets realized there was no effective law enforcement anymore. Joint human and alien patrols had kept dozens of systems safe for years. Now criminal organizations moved freely, attacking colonies and trading posts. Local alien forces were not strong enough to maintain order across such vast distances. Captain Steve Morrison had been coordinating defense for the entire Outer Rim from his command center on Frontier Base. His replacement was a competent alien officer, but she could not process information fast enough to track all the pirate activities. Crime rates doubled and then tripled as word spread that human protection was gone. Brett Hayes had trained hundreds of alien pilots in advanced combat techniques. His students were skilled, but they lacked the human ability to think creatively. During battle, pirates adapted their tactics faster than alien forces could respond. Dogfights that humans would have won in minutes now lasted for hours, with heavy losses on both sides. The economic damage spread like a disease, infecting every part of galactic civilization. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades became unreliable as shipping companies could not guarantee safe delivery. Manufacturing centers shut down when they could not get raw materials from human-controlled mining operations. Elena Rodriguez had managed refugee assistance programs that helped millions of displaced people find new homes. Her replacement tried hard but lacked her organizational skills and deep understanding of different species' needs. Refugee camps became overcrowded and dangerous as resources ran low and tensions rose between different alien groups. Agricultural systems suffered when human farming techniques were no longer available. Humans had developed methods to grow food in hostile environments that had fed entire sectors. Without this knowledge, several worlds faced starvation as their crops failed. Emergency food shipments helped but could not replace the efficient human agricultural networks. The Great Archive continued to function but received no new human contributions. For decades, human researchers had added discoveries and innovations at a rapid pace. The flow of new knowledge that had driven galactic progress for years had simply stopped. Alien scientists worked with outdated information while problems grew, more complex. Alex Warren had been directing research into faster-than-light communication systems that would have revolutionized galactic coordination. His team had been months away from a breakthrough that would let distant worlds communicate instantly. Now the project was abandoned, and the galaxy remained dependent on slow message systems that took weeks to cross large distances. Educational institutions throughout the galaxy struggled without human teachers and professors. Human learning methods had proven especially effective for training young minds in complex subjects. Schools that had relied on human educators found their students falling behind in science and mathematics. An entire generation was losing access to knowledge that could have advanced their civilizations. The psychological impact was harder to measure, but equally devastating. Humans had been friends and partners to countless alien individuals. Their sudden departure left emotional wounds that affected productivity and morale throughout the galaxy. Depression rates increased as aliens realized how much they had depended on human friendship and support. Nina Foster had been leading joint exploration missions that discovered dozens of new worlds suitable for colonization. Her alien partners continued the work, but made little progress without her leadership and human intuition for finding habitable planets. The expansion of galactic civilization slowed dramatically just when growing populations needed new homes. Cultural exchanges that had enriched billions of lives came to an end. Human art and music had influenced creative development across hundreds of worlds. Alien artists who had collaborated with humans found their work becoming repetitive and uninspired. The galaxy seemed less colorful and interesting without human creativity. As the crisis deepened, some alien leaders began to blame each other for humanity departure. Old rivalries surfaced as species competed for the resources that humans had previously managed fairly. The unity that human diplomacy had helped maintain was cracking under the pressure of economic collapse and social disruption. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Dr. Leth Ara was a quantum archaeologist who studied ancient ruins on distant worlds. She had been working on Kepler 442b for 3 years, digging through the remains of a civilization that died millions of years ago. What she found in a hidden data cache changed everything the Council thought they knew about galactic history. The files were from the predecessors who had been the most advanced civilization in galactic history before they mysteriously vanished. Dr. Lithara had seen predecessor ruins before, but never found intact data storage systems. The quantum crystals she discovered contained information that had been preserved for eons, waiting for someone smart enough to decode them. The first revelation was terrifying. The predecessors had not been the first galactic civilization to disappear without explanation. Archaeological evidence pointed to at least 7 previous cycles of advanced civilization. Each cycle lasted roughly 50,000 years before, vanishing completely, leaving only ruins and mysteries behind. Dr. Lithara worked day and night to translate the ancient files. The predecessors had been scientists, and they kept detailed records of their discoveries. What she learned made her hands shake as she typed her reports. The galaxy operated on cycles of rise and catastrophic fall that had repeated for millions of years. But the most shocking revelation came from predecessor observations of Earth. Ancient monitoring stations had been watching human development for millions of years. The files contained detailed studies of human psychology and social development and technological progress. The predecessors had been fascinated by humanity long before humans knew other intelligent life existed. One report translated by Dr. Quintal contained an assessment that chilled everyone who read it. The predecessors had designated humans as Species Terra 03 and noted their unprecedented adaptability and pattern recognition abilities. Their rapid advancement suggested they might be the first species capable of recognizing the galactic cycles. The report recommended continued observation to see if humans could achieve true transcendence. The truth became clearer as xenoarchaeologist Dr. Yexandra found additional predecessor sites throughout the galaxy. Every advanced civilization that had ever existed had followed the same pattern. They would develop technology and spread across the stars and then suddenly vanish, leaving no trace of what happened to them. Captain Nina Foster's personal logs were discovered in an abandoned human research facility on the edge of the galaxy. Her entries revealed the scope of human discovery over the past several years. She wrote that they had identified the source of the galactic cycles, and it was not a natural phenomenon. Something or someone had been systematically harvesting advanced civilizations for millions of years. The files showed that humans had been investigating archaeological sites secretly for decades. They had found evidence that the previous civilizations had not died from war or disease or natural disaster. They had been taken by something that came from outside the galaxy. The humans called these entities the Harvesters, based on predecessor terminology. Dr. Alex Warren had been coordinating human research into the galactic cycles from hidden facilities throughout human space. His classified reports showed that scientists had identified patterns in the disappearances. The Harvesters appeared every 50,000 years like clockwork to collect the most advanced species, leaving primitive civilizations to eventually evolve and rebuild. The cycle had repeated, 7 times that humans could document and probably many more times before that. Each harvest was more efficient than the last, as the Harvesters learned better methods for identifying and collecting advanced civilizations. The galaxy was like a farm where intelligent species were crops to be gathered when they ripened. Elena Rodriguez had been secretly documenting alien technological development as part of the human effort to understand the harvest cycles. Her refugee assistance work gave her access to information about dozens of species and their capabilities. She had been measuring how close galactic civilization was to triggering the next harvest event. The most frightening discovery was that the current galactic civilization was approaching the 50,000-year mark. Human calculations suggested that the Harvesters were already on their way from outside the galaxy. The next harvest could begin at any time, and when it did, every advanced species would face the same fate as their predecessors. But humans had found something else in the predecessor archives that gave them hope. Deep within the data was evidence of a desperate plan to break the cycle. The predecessors had begun construction of massive defensive installations designed to repel the Harvesters. The project had been their last desperate attempt to survive, but they had run out of time before completing it. The predecessor defensive network required a species with specific technological and psychological capabilities to operate effectively. The ancient files contained detailed specifications for the operators, including rapid adaptability, creative problem-solving, and the ability to function under extreme stress. Humans fit the profile perfectly, and they were the first species to discover these requirements. Captain Steve Morrison had been overseeing secret construction projects in hidden locations throughout human space. His final report showed that humans had been building weapons and defensive systems based on predecessor designs for several years. They were trying to finish what the predecessors had started before the Harvesters arrived. Brett Hayes had been training human military personnel in combat techniques designed specifically for fighting the Harvesters. The ancient files contained tactical information about previous battles between the predecessors and the Harvest fleets. Human forces were practicing scenarios that their alien allies could not even imagine. The truth about human departure became clear as more evidence was uncovered. They had not abandoned galactic civilization out of fear or selfishness. They had discovered a threat that would destroy every advanced species in the galaxy and had taken responsibility for stopping it. While other species continued their normal lives, humans had quietly prepared for the greatest battle in galactic history. Dr. Ventara found medical records showing that humans had been developing treatments for injuries and conditions that would result from combat with harvester technology. They had been preparing for a war that no other species knew was coming. The humans had chosen to become the shield that would protect an entire galaxy. As reports filtered in from deep space monitoring stations, the Council realized that massive energy signatures were approaching from outside the galaxy. The harvesters were coming just as human calculations had predicted. The cycle that had repeated for millions of years was about to begin again, but this time would be different because humans had found a way to fight back. The council chambers erupted in chaos as Dr. Lithara finished presenting her findings. Species that had existed for thousands of years suddenly faced the reality that their entire civilization was living on borrowed time. The comfortable illusion of galactic stability shattered like glass as the truth about the harvest cycles became clear. Ambassador Zexalar was the first to speak, and her luminescent patches dimmed with horror. She whispered that the humans had known about the threat and had not warned anyone. They had simply left the rest of galactic civilization to face the harvest alone. Her voice carried the pain of betrayal that many others felt. But Council Speaker Vexthar had been studying the data more carefully, and his crystalline mind worked differently than most organic species. He stood slowly, and his voice resonated with dawning understanding. He said the humans had not abandoned them at all. They had gone to prepare for something no other species could handle. Additional predecessor files revealed the true scope of what the galaxy faced. The harvesters operated from massive ships that came from the space between galaxies. They appeared every 50,000 years with technology so advanced that resistance seemed impossible. They collected entire civilizations like farmers gathering crops, leaving only empty worlds behind. The predecessors had called them harvesters because they took intelligent life forms for purposes that remained unclear. 7 previous galactic civilizations had fallen to these entities, and each harvest had been more efficient than the last. The pattern had repeated for millions of years without anyone finding a way to break the cycle. Dr. Yexandra had found evidence of the predecessor plan buried deep in archaeological sites. The ancient civilization had begun construction of defensive installations throughout the galaxy. These weapons were designed specifically to fight harvester technology, but the project had been incomplete when the last harvest occurred. The predecessor files contained detailed specifications for operating their defensive network. The system required operators with rapid adaptability and creative problem-solving abilities and resistance to psychological pressure. Most species could handle 1 or 2 of these requirements, but humans were the first to meet all the criteria. Captain Nina Foster's final transmission to the Council had been thought lost for months, but was discovered in a hidden data cache. Her message revealed the scope of human preparation for the coming battle. She said they were not running away, but finishing what the predecessors had started. The defensive network required human capabilities to operate, and they would be ready when the harvesters arrived. The massive construction projects in Sol's system were not preparations for isolation, but weapons factories building the tools needed to defend the galaxy. Human industrial capacity had been secretly redirected for years to produce predecessor-designed weapons and defensive systems. They had been preparing for war while maintaining the illusion of normal galactic participation. Captain Steve Morrison had been overseeing military preparations that dwarfed anything in galactic history. Human forces had been training in combat techniques developed from predecessor tactical files. They were learning to fight an enemy that no living being had ever faced and survived to describe. Alex Warren's research facilities had been working around the clock to understand harvester technology and develop countermeasures. Human scientists had made breakthroughs in fields that other species had not even discovered yet. They were pushing the boundaries of physics and engineering to build weapons that could damage harvester ships. Elena Rodriguez had been coordinating evacuation plans that would protect human civilians during the coming battle. The transport fleets, That had seemed like mysterious evacuation missions were actually strategic relocations to secure areas. Human families were being moved to protected zones where they could survive even if the defensive network failed. Dr. Ventara found medical records showing that humans had been preparing for casualties on a massive scale. They had developed treatments for weapons effects that had never been seen in galactic warfare. Human medical teams were ready to treat injuries from energy weapons and exotic radiation that the harvesters would use. The economic withdrawal that had seemed like abandonment was actually resource consolidation for the war effort. Humans had been quietly moving industrial equipment and raw materials to secure locations. They were building the largest military force in galactic history while other species worried about trade routes and shipping schedules. As deep space sensors detected the approaching harvester fleet, the Council realized the magnitude of human sacrifice. While other species had lived normal lives for decades, humans had been carrying the burden of knowledge about the coming disaster. They had given up their comfortable galactic lifestyle to become warriors in a battle for survival. Brett Hayes had left behind training manuals that revealed human military doctrine for fighting the harvesters. The strategies were unlike anything used in conventional warfare because the enemy was unlike anything the galaxy had faced before. Human forces had been practicing scenarios that seemed impossible to alien military minds. The harvester ships appeared on long-range sensors exactly when human calculations had predicted. The massive vessels were larger than space stations and moved with technology that violated known laws of physics. Their approach confirmed everything the humans had discovered about the harvest cycles. But something was different this time. As the harvester fleet entered the galaxy, they encountered resistance for the first time in millions of years. Human defensive platforms activated throughout space, creating a network of protection around inhabited systems. The weapons fired energy beams that could actually damage harvester ships. The final message from Director Alex Warren reached the Council just as the first battles began. His transmission was broadcast from the Sol system where humanity had gathered, its greatest defensive force. He told the galaxy to stay strong because the humans were coming home with friends and the cycle would end now. For the first time in 50,000 years, a galactic civilization would not face the harvest alone. The humans had spent decades preparing for this moment, and they had found allies among the ancient predecessor installations throughout the galaxy. The defensive network was coming online, and the battle for galactic freedom was about to begin. Empty human chairs in the council chambers no longer looked like symbols of abandonment. They represented the courage of a species that had chosen to shoulder an impossible burden to protect everyone else. The humans had not left in silence out of fear, but out of love for the galaxy they called home.